Welcome to your Joyful Riches podcast, where you gain precious tips and tools on creating your joyful, thriving life in a beautiful, full spectrum manner. Because we all deserve and want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. This podcast is delivered in alongside G100 Global Networking and powered by Anchor FM by Spotify. Anchor FM is this super awesome free podcast made easy platform. And for this week, we are so thrilled and honored to have Phyllis with us. Phyllis, would you care to share with us what is it that you do?
Oh, first of all, thanks so much. This is just such a privilege and honor to be here with you. So I coach with women primarily over the age of 50, I would say, to develop their well-being action plan so they can age healthfully and gracefully, but also disrupt the destructive or unproductive habits, I'd say, that cause them stress and shorten their lives.
Oh wow, that is so important, is knowing how our populations are so many people are reaching that tip of 50 and above, including myself, and also so many people. We, in addition to that, we also live longer, so we want to be able to live
Correct.
longer, better, not just live longer. That is so amazing. So, what brings you to do what you do, Phyllis?
Well, thank you so much, because there's so much behind that. And when you say about living better, so I'm just going to talk about my journey a little bit,
Surely,
if that's
surely.
okay. So by profession, I'm a gerontological speech and language pathologist and dementia care specialist. And I've worked over 40,000 hours in long-term care environments. So I certainly have seen the side of it that isn't so healthy. And of course, we all know things can happen to any one of us at any point in time. And a lot goes into that, our choices, our environment, our DNA. But the choices you make certainly could help you on that journey, right? And so because I've seen so much on the other side of it, and I say, I wish I had a penny or a nickel for every person that said to me they wish they made different choices. So my particular personal story in that realization starts really from when I was 17. So one day I'm sitting, it's a warm spring evening, the Monday before Father's Day. And I'm sitting next to my father reading a book. And 1 minute he's there. The next minute, I thought he fell asleep, but he actually expired. And he was a diabetic, but he didn't always follow what the doctor told him to do. He didn't even always follow what my mother was telling him were the better choices. So that realization kind of kept playing, that tape kept playing in my head. And I realized it's about personal responsibility and personal choices. Yes, things would happen. I'm also have a propensity for diabetes because my father was diabetic. But the choices I make now may help prevent that or forestall that. So if we are going to live longer, well, we certainly want to live as healthfully as we possibly can.
That is, first of all, my heart goes out to you. Even though that was many years ago, but that experience, like you said, it is impactful, and thankfully for you, you take it in such a way that it is. Yes, it's a sadness, but also you take it to motivate you to help others and to help yourself and to help others even more now. So I love how you turn that something that could be so traumatic, I can only imagine, to something that is so helpful for many people. So do you have a couple tips, let's say a tip or two or three, on how is it that we can create a better golden years, so to say? How do we women and men can make the right choices, as you say?
Well, there are so many things that go into that, right? And there's a lot of research about that. So I'm just going to touch on that briefly. So, people have talked about wellness models, physical, spiritual, intellectual, social, emotional, there are many parameters, right? And the most recent research really boils down to kind of three, well, they call it the three A's, autonomy, achievement, and affiliation. But so what choices can you make within each one of those, right? So autonomy, we all have a need to be independent and make independent choices. And so therefore, we want to be in circumstances where we can do that, right? What I suggest, because there is another aspect to what I do, which is coaching families to help make the best and most informed decisions for care if it's needed. So under autonomy, not only about autonomy to make choices for your own well-being, the strategies, let's say, you can use, but the autonomy to have conversations with your family members and loved ones about the potential choices you might have to make down the road. Because all too often what I have seen, right, in long-term care environments is, the adult children, there are so many of them now, right, the baby boomers, they go and make decisions for their parents and say, I'm putting my mother here, I'm putting my father here, I'm going to look at this place for my parents. But what about the parent in that paradigm, right? We all have a need to make independent choices. So I highly recommend that people have conversations about the need for care if it arises, and the types of care and the places for care, and make informed decisions by getting the information you need. I just say I come from that place, so not everybody has that bird's eye on the boots on the ground perspective. And the other one is achievement. We all need to feel like we've achieved something, right? And that includes physical ability. So achieving, whatever physical activity you feel is beneficial to you, there's a sense of achievement. I know I love to lift weights, and I have a tremendous sense of achievement when I can do, let's say, 15 reps or something at certain pounds, and then I go to the next level. Achievement boosts our, as you know, boosts our mood, right? Our serotonin, our feelings of how we, our happiness and our healthfulness. And the last one I'd say is under affiliation is connection. We all need to feel connected, right? And so not only connected with ourselves, but connected with, and not only friends and family, but with our people in our community. So what I say, acts of kindness are one of the greatest ways to initiate connection, even when you don't even think of it as connection, but it has tremendous positive effects for not only the person for whom you're bestowing the act of kindness, but also for yourself. It creates even a smile, a simple smile, right? Create some kind of connection and feel good mood, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I would completely agree with that. There are many studies, like you said, there are a lot of studies. There are many studies showing that humans are social animal.
Right.
And when we're not able to connect with people kind of during the lockdown, a lot of people go nuts, so to say. It's understandably, we know by many studies shows that babies, you can give them the best nutrition, but without the human touch, whether it's from the baby's mother or somebody else, but a caring human touch,
Correct.
like you say, they will not thrive. And this is an animal and people. And so it's so So very true with that. The connection and the ability, thankfully nowadays in most places, to be able to, like you said, even a smile is soothing to people. Now that we're able to do that again, so
Correct. I have two examples to talk about that, about the human touch. So one is, if people recall back many years ago in the beginnings of the AIDS epidemic, that people were starving for human touch because people were afraid to touch people who had AIDS at that time. One of the first people who demonstrated the willingness to touch a person who had AIDS was Princess Diana, and it was a very big deal at the time. The other one I want to give as an example is a client I had recently that I was working with, developing his well-being action plan. And his wife had died a number of months previously. And he recognized, and most people don't recognize this, he recognized that he missed that human touch connection, not sexual necessarily, but just that human touch connection. And so what he did, I thought it was fantastic. He made sure he scheduled himself for massages once a month so that he could just have that physical human touch connection. We all need that. Our bodies respond to it. So that's so important. People who are, let's say, alone in their homes, even though you and I are connecting by Zoom, it's still not the same as a physical touch. I have a tip for people. This may sound funny, but you can hug yourself. And it really boosts your mood. You could just wrap your arms around yourself and hug yourself tightly. You'll feel a difference. Or even just stroke your forearms, downwards from your shoulders several times. You will feel the difference in how you feel, because that touch releases, hormones that make us feel better, chemicals that make us feel better.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that with you. I work with people who are grieving, as you already know, Phyllis, and many people actually live on their own, or they might live with somebody, but for some reason they're like, yeah, but I kind of don't want to be. And when people grieving, people change, grief change people. So sometimes they used to feel comfortable being hugged by other people, and they're like, I don't feel comfortable being hugged. But at the end of the day, almost everybody are comfortable doing, like you said, the self-hug. And you just, because it's many people don't know this, and I'm sure you know this, our skin has a sensory receptor for tactile. Correct. And so I say, take your, if you are able to, if you're not, that's fine, but take your jacket off so you touch your skin actually, and then hug yourself, like you said, rub yourself. And for those, some of us not comfortable hugging ourselves, I discover even when you pat yourself on the shoulder, kind of like when somebody said, good job, kind of pat its shoulder. It's like, good job, squeeze a little bit. In the funniest way, during the pandemic, early on, when everybody was like, has to be 6 feet away from anybody, I think my cat, believe it or not, of all things, my cat probably like sensed something with me. And he used to just jump on one side or the other, or when I pick him up, he'd hold one day. One day he just he jump up and he has like both paws here. So he hold on like me, like a kid. His name happened to be Kid, but he hold on for me like a kid, and he's kind of like holding like that, almost like holding, tapping my shoulder. I'm like, something about this. So
that's really very cool. That's really very, very cool. And the other thing I was going to say to people, if they don't feel comfortable doing that, or it sounds kind of funny, there are weighted blankets. They use them for different things. They use them for people who have dementia or other situations. But really, even getting a weighted blanket, you'll feel that deep input, right? If you don't feel comfortable with that hugging, you'll feel that weight upon your body, which will still give you something. I think I lost your audio there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Now, yeah, definitely the weighted blanket, just being able to feel the snuggleness is so
Right.
important. And so what do you say to people? So from what I understand from your tips earlier, it's also talking about, talking about people with our people who are adult caretaker, talking about with other people, but also wouldn't you say it's for people to be thriving, we want to be kind of planning and looking forward for ourselves? Is that something you recommend people do as well? Kind of like have in place, not only if our parents, our elderly parents have something happen, but sometimes we feel, oh, we're only 50, we're only 55, or only 60, or something like that. But like, what do you have any tips for people who are in early 50s, let's say, like, so it's the next 20 years for their own self, they can have autonomy, and they can have things set up for themselves.
Correct. So, of course, there's a financial piece to that, right? Setting yourself up for making sure that your financial needs are met, and within that is also there are plenty of advisors, I'll say, who look towards the number of years that you have and the number of years where you are now and where you might be going, and to make sure that you're situated to be able to do that, whether it's a wealth manager or a financial advisor or long-term care insurance. But I'm affiliated with many people in that space, but what I tell them really is, I think that's wonderful that people are doing that planning, but they really need to look at the underlying possibilities of, if something happens to them, what kind of care do they think they would need, especially if they have any underlying conditions? Because I can tell you from my experience that, unfortunately, if you have certain underlying conditions, the likelihood is at some point something's going to happen. And I'll just tell you how that progresses. You'll wind up in a hospital, and in the hospital you likely will need some rehabilitation, and they'll tell you, well, you're going to this place, or here are some choices for you. But the reality is, they're business people too, and I'm not saying they're bad people, but their choices might be more aligned with some business affiliations than what's best for you. So I know this is a tough conversation for people, but I would suggest to them that they look into what the possibilities are for care as they continue to age. Suppose they break a hip, suppose they break a shoulder. Are they going to be able, is their home situated for that kind of care? And it sounds like a silly thing from like when you're 50s and 60s, but I've seen way too much.
It's definitely not a silly thing. I live in the in a slightly different realm, but it's definitely get me thinking now that I'm looking on buying my next home. I live on a second floor condominium, and there is no elevator. You got to take the stairs on the outside to get into this place. It's not a 2-story, it's a second floor. And I, for some strangest random reason, I don't even know why, I tripped on the stairs.
Oh my,
And
see?
this past week, and thankfully, all it did is it sprained it sprained the ankle of one leg, and kind of whacked the knee on the other leg. So it's kind of like both legs in a way. And it's the sprained pretty badly. And I was like, good thing I only sprained things, and I could hang on to things and still get up and down carefully. But different time could be different scenario.
Absolutely correct. And so therefore, it's great that you have those reflexes. You were able to catch yourself to a certain degree. That's why core strength is so important. I really emphasize that, doing things to strengthen people's core, to walk with intention and mindfulness, which is not an easy thing. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. It takes practice. And that's all part of my well-being action plan that I give people strategies. I say going, and also, so many people are stressed, overwhelmed, and stretched that they're not thinking about those things. You're doing things thinking about what you have to do, the situations, your challenges. I mean, I'm human, I have that as well. But I say, go from stressed, overwhelmed, and stretched to strategies of success for your well-being, right? So that includes just what I was saying, making sure you're intentional, making intentional choices about, your eating habits, how you're walking, your exercise regime, your mindful state. Is your mind full, or are you mindful, right? Are you doing
I
things
I love that.
mindlessly or mindfully?
Yeah, I love that. Is your mind full or are you mindful? And sounds like so in other words, for our audience here who are listening, it's not like some huge giant complicated things, but
Right.
it is a simple thing in our day, in your daily life. If you are listening to Phyllis here, a simple thing in your daily life that allow you to be able to thrive in the next 20, 30, 40 years or 5 years that you are around. And also sounds like your one of your thing is achievement. That's also easy to achieve and allow us to feel good, because sometimes when we hear the word achievement, we're thinking about, oh, you got to achieve to become, I don't know, a CEO of a multi-million
Correct.
dollar company or something like that. But you're talking about simple daily achievement.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just so glad that you said that, because people do think that, I have to aspire, or legacy, I have to aspire to something phenomenal that will change the world. I just spoke with somebody yesterday, actually, who did achieve a lot professionally. And just going along this line of thinking, he wanted to do something impactful to change the world. And he was looking at different philanthropic endeavors. And then he found out that that's quite something difficult to undertake, really. And just by chance, he was in a coffee shop sitting next to a person who clearly had some intellectual challenges, and he decided to help him. And over time, they became friends. And he had this aha moment that impact doesn't have to be this with this big W for the world. He made such an important impact in this one person's life, and he felt so great about that. So it just goes to what you say about, we think of achievement in these large terms. And here was this person who did achieve a lot in large terms, but the most satisfaction he's gotten is helping this one person. And we all can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also the talking about the affiliations and the connections. Sometimes when you accomplish all these things, it's kind of like when I was being a doctor, it was, yeah, you help like it's that many people a day going go 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 go, and it definitely make a huge difference. But sometimes there is a different level when, like you say, yes, he's accomplished all this professionally, and then there is this helping others, kindness, and affiliation with a deeper connections, because I think that's the deeper connections is there when he helped this other person versus creating something for the world all the time. So that is so wonderful. How do people connect with you if they want to learn more about this?
Well, sure. Thank you for asking that. So people can email me. My email is my name, Phyllis, Phyllis, and then it's Phyllis again, my last name, Ayman, and associates with an S.com. And my website is also phyllisaymonassociates.com. And, can I add one other thing, actually? Because
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
talked about people living longer and living healthfully.
Mhm.
And another very important aspect to me, because I've worked so long in long-term care, is the respect we give to older people.
Mm.
And so I really believe that some of the care that's less than adequate is because we don't value older people the way we should. Your culture might be a little different, but in America per se, we don't really do that. I think that's a great failing because there's so much history and wealth of information. And as we said earlier, old people need a sense of purpose and connection, right?
Yeah,
So towards that end, I have this project. Can I talk about it for just a minute?
sure, absolutely.
So I have this project. I'm raising money for a screenplay that's based on two novels.
Wow.
And I do have film producers interested in the film once the
Wow.
screenplay is finished. And I have a screenplay writer interested in writing it. And it's based on two novels that are about elder wisdom and wise leadership and community and the importance of connection and intergenerational relationships.
Oh,
So, if anybody was interested, I don't know if you put you have show notes or you put something
yeah,
in the
yeah,
chat,
yeah,
but if it's okay,
yeah.
I would just add my FundMe page, which has a whole description of what this is really about,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
I think as a collective, we need to have a national conversation, a dialogue about how we care for, treat, and value older people. And that's, comes from all my experience. It's all related.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that is so beautiful. That is very true. The different culture different, but with me being in the strangest way in both culture, my background is Chinese Indonesians, but I've been here most of my life in the U.S. and also right when I was writing for the United Nations Committee, that is I noticed just around us and in many studies showing that even in the medical care in
Correct.
where they're like, oh, you are in my research, oh, you are older, and so it's just part of being old if you are in pain.
Correct. Correct. I mean, that's so couldn't be further from the truth. And that's part of our whole ageist way of thinking about older people. You're done. That's what's expected. Okay, go over there. And thanks, we've heard enough of you. That's
Yeah, and just like how degrading that could be, and
correct.
so
Correct.
so
And doesn't that affect people's sense of connection,
mhm.
purpose, all of that? And that obviously leads to depression, it leads to apathy, it leads to so many things that then impact the person's health and well-being.
Exactly, and talking about and a lot of I was writing for this United Nations Committee on grief in elderly, and it's like they already seen so many, experienced so many changes, seen so many losses, and then to be treated like that, to go to a place and say, oh, I'm feeling depressed, could be because of all the losses and the change and the physical, but just like, oh well, it's just part of life, part of getting old. It's like, where is the hope? So,
Right, exactly. And don't we all have to have some kind of hope? Why is it that we get to a certain age and there's nothing to hope for or live for or look for? Or, people who are older could have so much impact on, what children learn, how they learn, their
yeah.
experiences. I'm not the only person who said this. We all can push a button for a search engine and get information, but it's not the same as hearing a person who's lived through this experience talk about it. It's a whole other level of understanding, I think, and of richness of the experience.
That is so beautiful. So this is two novels that you are creating into a movie. That just
Correct.
so lovely, and this will be helping this the message from this movie is to help us understand and respect our elders, and in a way it will give back to us as well. So yes, we will definitely share this in the description as well, and for people to check that out. I do have one question for you before we complete, well, two questions, but the first one is, you discuss about how you're helping people. So do people work with you one-to-one, or is there an online program they do, or is it a group?
Oh, great question. So yes, I do coach people one-on-one, and I am developing a course so that people can just take a course, and it will be posted on a platform, which is it's a new platform. They haven't launched the courses yet, and that will be babyboomer.org. So there will be an online course that people can go through themselves, but of course they could contact me and work with me individually. And the program is either it's a 10 or 12-week program, and then I do an assessment, and we determine where they are, and then we develop the well-being action plan from there.
Well, that is wonderful. So it's not something that's, because sometimes nowadays, the way the coaching industry, some people's like, oh, am I gonna stuck doing this stuck with you having to work for the rest of your life? Or
Right,
some people, depend on what it is, worry about some huge magnitude of time or financial investment, particularly if we're looking at our the amount of retirement income. So it's something that people can do remotely, and depend on their comfort level. It could be on their own, it could be working with you at a in multiple different options, in other words, that fits the person.
Correct.
That is so awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Phyllis. This is such beautiful tips and tools and message. And as we complete our time together here today, do you have one final message for our audience?
That's a great question. I would say to embrace wherever you are in life and continue to look forward with positivity and living a life fulfilled to your best possible ability. And age is a number. We say that kind of just as a platitude, but really we need to embrace that. I've seen too much of people say, "Oh, I'm already this," or "I'm already that." Here's the expression I'm sure we've all heard: the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So wherever you are in life, you can still make changes so that you can have a fulfilling and a graceful journey, I'll say.
Right. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I love that we have these amazing conversations. We met like quite a few years ago. For our audience, I actually met, we've known each other a long time. I met Phyllis, I believe it's 4 or 5 years ago. And actually you interviewed me, and I barely know what interview all about. And so, but I love that. I love how to embrace wherever you are, because life will keep going on. And if you didn't plant the tree for your future 20 years ago, the time to do it is now, and Phyllis will be able to help guide you in the way that you would love to be guided. And in the interim, like we said, give yourself a little self-hug or a little self-pat, and I thank you very, very much for joining us today. Thank you, Phyllis, again for sharing your tips. And for you, my friend, who are listening to this, please share 1 or 2 gold nuggets in the comments so we can continue learning each other. And share this with your friends and families, because many of us know, even if we're not personally, many of us know somebody who are in their 50s, 60s, or 70s who can benefit from this. And we all deserve to triumph and thrive. And so thank you for joining us. This is Dr. BirgitteTan, your grief transformation specialist for individual and businesses, founder of the International Childhood Cancer Charity, and United States country chair of G100 Global Networking's All Ladies League. Make it a thriving day, my friend, and we look forward to see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.